Kirk Cousins gets extended. Mike Zimmer gets extended. Rick Spielman likely will get extended. Dalvin Cook, we thought was going to get extended. It all fell apart near the end of the virtual offseason program. Cook pulled the plug on his participation and started to make noise, Chris, that sounded a little bit like he may hold out of training camp.
Right.
Well, now, as we get closer to training camp, this was so bizarre on Saturday. Mike Zimmer, talking to reporters in connection with his new contract, he said that he was told that Dalvin Cook will be there for the start of training camp. Who told you? Dalvin Cook told me. Then Zach Hiller, Dalvin Cook's agent, issues a statement on Saturday saying that didn't happen. I don't know where that's coming from. Dalvin never told Mike Zimmer he's going to be there for the start of training camp. So then there's a report from NFL media that Dalvin Cook actually told running backs coach Kennedy Polamalu that Cook was going to be there. Polamalu conveyed it to Zimmer, and that's the explanation. So Cook's going to be there. And then Hiller issues another statement. No, that didn't happen either. So I don't know what the hell's going to happen. The Vikings don't know what's going to happen. Tomorrow's the day to show up for training camp or not. If you don't show up, it's $50,000 a day. Plus, this year under the new CBA, you instantly lose a year of credit toward free agency. You don't have that buffer anymore at the early stage of camp. So we're going to find out. It's a mess. It's awkward. It's confusing. And my guess is Zimmer's parade for his new contract got a little rain on it with this weird situation that popped up on Saturday, and he's probably upset that there's been this miscommunication that is playing out publicly.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he is. I mean, no head coach likes that. I mean, he made it, to me, from the outside looking in, and we don't know the facts here, I'm just totally speculating. It looks like Dalvin Cook probably told his running back coach, Kennedy Polamalu, that, hey, yeah, don't worry, coach, I'm going to be there. I'm coming in. And then he must have told his agent that, then his agent sees these public comments and his agent calls him and then, hey, did you say that? And, they went in to put the ketchup back into the ketchup bottle type mode here. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. I don't know that, but just my experiences in the NFL and being around the league, that's what it leads me to believe. But this is a weird situation. And I want to say, not weird. I think this is that's a wrong word. We need to get used to this situation. Because every good running back that gets done with year 3 of their career, this is what's going to be done. And I can't get mad at them because their careers are usually over by year 6 or 7. So they got to strike now. And Dalvin Cook is, no doubt about it, one of the best running backs in football. And he's making chump change this year. He's going to make $600,000.
$1.3 million.
Is it 1.3? Okay, that's what he's going to get total.
It's still far, $1.3 million is his salary.
Right. Yeah, it's still chump change. And especially when you got a guy on your team, hey, we'll go back to the old conversation. He's going to go, is Kirk Cousins really worth 26 times more than me? Or whatever the number is. I mean, I'm just doing it off the top of my head. It's insane. So, yeah, that bothers him, and let him alone. This is a guy that's tore his ACL his second year in the NFL. He realizes how quickly life can change, and he's got to protect himself. So he's got to figure out what he's going to do here, Mike. I don't know. What do you think the right thing for him to do here is going forward?
Actually, he tore his ACL non-contact 4th game of his career. He had 100 yards in each of his first 3 games.
Right.
Rookie year, ACL torn. Second year, it felt like he was always injured. Now, maybe it was just, your body compensates for the ACL. Yeah. He had hamstring injuries. He's had one great year.
Right.
And I think he had 1,300 rushing yards last year. Maybe not even that many. I look at the offense that the Vikings run.
Yes.
Under Gary Kubiak.
Yes.
And I made this point over the weekend. When Kubiak was the offensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos, they had 4 different 1,000-yard rushers in a 5-year window.
Right.
Guys like Terrell Davis, he gets injured. Olandis Gary has 1,000 yards. Mike Anderson has 1,000 yards.
Right.
They had guys like Reuben Drones and Tatum Bell that had 1,000-yard seasons. That offense is conducive to running back production at a high level. And at what point do the Vikings say, we can't pay you like a top 5 running back because our offense helps create top 10 running backs, and we've got Alexander Mattison. We've got what we have budgeted for the position. They went through all those years where they had too much salary cap space devoted to Adrian Peterson, and he became the focal point of the offense, and as a result, the passing game couldn't complement it sufficiently. I think the Vikings have decided what they're going to pay him. And that's what it is. And here's where we are. And Dalvin Cook's going to have to make a decision of what he's going to do. Is he going to hold out? Is he going to show up? Is he going to play out this year and wait for the franchise tag like Derrick Henry did and then sign a long-term contract? This is a tough one. One thing that we wrote when Derrick Henry signed, and I think this is true with the exception of Le'Veon Bell, running backs don't get big contracts from teams that they didn't already play for. Right? If you're going to get a big contract, it's going to come from your team. And even Bell didn't get close to what he wanted. And as we talked about earlier, the Jets got grifted a little bit by this idea that the Ravens were seriously in play when they weren't.
Right.
Bell may be the aberration. For the most part, you're Melvin Gordon. If you finish your contract, your rookie deal with the team that drafted you, and you leave as a free agent, they don't have that equity in your name. They don't have all those jerseys in the stands. Not that matters this year. But you're not that star central player that a guy who stays there will be, and there's value in that. And I think teams try to push that aside. You know, Dalvin Cook, a key piece of that team. He became a superstar in Minnesota last year. But you put in Alexander Mattison, and what's the drop-off, Chris? And I think that's what the Vikings have to consider.
I think it's really real. I mean, I do. I mean, you know, right. I understand what Dalvin Cook is doing here, and wouldn't be mad at him if he did hold out or opted out or do anything. I wouldn't be. But I think all the points you made also are very real for the Vikings. First off, the Vikings are a team that are very top-heavy to begin with. I mean, they are. You know, this is one of their issues. They don't have great depth on their football team because they've drafted really well and had to pay a lot of stars and do things like that. You know, but I think the big thing is, you know, you made the right points to me. You know, they have a pretty good run-blocking offensive line. Gary Kubiak knows that Shanahan run scheme. He knows that outside-inside zone. He knows how to coach it. And you mentioned all the guys that, hey, think of he didn't even draft Arian Foster. He was undrafted. And he led football in rushing, like 2 out of the first 4 years in football?
Great point.
You know?
Great point.
He, of course, is sitting there going, we can find other guys. And as you've said many, many times, and you just said it, Madison's super talented. I mean, you're right. I don't know if there's a lot of a difference between him and Dalvin Cook. So I have a hard time thinking that Minnesota is going to bend here and throw a lot of money at Dalvin Cook right now when they're in a little bit of a we're trying to flip the roster over and get away from the Everson Griffin, the Xavier Rhodes, and Trey Waynes and all of that too, to where I have a hard time believing they're going to throw big money out of Dalvin Cook. If I'm Dalvin Cook, I'm going to training camp, Mike, and I'm giving, what is that, August 16th? Is that still the day? I'm going to give it then. I'm going to see how things go. Maybe we can get something done. Maybe I can get
August 3.
August 3.
August 3 is the opt-out day.
Oh, man. That's tough.
And this is the theory that I wrote about this last night at PFT. I don't know that this is going to happen, but he can show up on Tuesday, go through those first few days, which is simply COVID-19 testing.
Right.
And his agent, you can't give a guy a new contract after he's opted out. But you can, there's nothing that prohibits conversations, hypothetical, between his agent and the Vikings saying, you know, he's really concerned about playing this year. And he doesn't think he's being compensated fairly enough for the risk that he's taking. You throw in his concerns that he already has as it relates to his contract. You throw on top of it the risk of playing in a pandemic. And it's not BS. I mean, it's not all that difficult to fashion a plausible and authentic argument that this player, who already has misgivings about suiting up and playing, especially given his injury history, without financial security beyond this year, with only $1.331 million in salary this year, you need to sweeten it, because one of his options is to say, I'll see you next year. I will opt out. I will not play, and we'll deal with this situation in 2021. Now, it makes it no different for him in 2021. His salary is still $1.331 million if he opts out. But what it does is it forces the Vikings to go forward without him, and that's where Alexander Mattison becomes an issue. He was a third-round pick out of Boise State.
Right.
They used a third-round pick on Cook, who was a second-round pick after 2 seasons with Cook that were marred by injury. So they had to have been thinking in 2019, Mattison may end up being the guy.
Right.
Cook got it together, but if they got to flip to Mattison averaged more yards per carry last year than Cook. So I think it's a dangerous game for Zach Hiller and Dalvin Cook to be playing with the Vikings on this, because they're going to slam the door in someone's face. They can't pay everyone.
No.
And it very well could be that if they start making noise about opting out in 2020, the Vikings say, well, we'll see you next year. We got Alexander Mattison, we got Mike Boone, and we'll find other guys too who will do well in the Gary Kubiak rushing attack.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, Mike Boone's got a little talent. They do have Amir Abdullah. How do they feel about him? Do they feel like he could be healthy and contribute? I think those two guys alone, just Boone and Abdullah, are names that you go, okay, that's the unknown here. How do they feel about them? And are they okay with that, them being the 2 and the 3 option at the running back position? Certainly going to hurt their team if they don't have Cook. Cook, Madison, hey, damn, that's how many times last year were we sitting in there on a Sunday going, oh, man, look at Cook hit the hole there. And then we go, oh, that was Madison, So it made them a dangerous football team, and there was basically no drop-off. You're right. Madison probably runs with more power than Dalvin Cook in a lot of ways too. But Cook is special, and this is a team that wants to run the football and play defense, and then, of course, run the bootlegs and play actions off of it. So he's a very valuable commodity between his talent and the way the offense is formulated. But you're right. It's a dangerous game. And they have to be careful here. And, maybe that's what happens, Mike. Maybe they can just give him a sweetener to make him feel better for the year and maybe work on something long-term after the year's over.
And we're big Dalvin Cook fans.
We are.
I want him to be properly compensated. I want him to be successful for the Vikings. I don't want the Vikings to have to pull the pin and go forward with Alexander Mattison. But the problem is when you start drawing lines in the sand, you paint yourself into a corner, as I jam as many potential metaphors as I can into the same line. But that's the reality. We've seen that, Chris. Yeah. We've seen agents get themselves into a jam because they huffed and puffed, and then when the time came to blow someone's house in, they didn't know what to do. And I'm concerned, based upon what we saw Saturday, this awkward, clumsy, unnecessary back and forth between the Vikings and Zach Hiller. I'm concerned that this accidentally ends up in a confrontation that can be avoided. We'll see how that plays out.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.